Before we get into recording this episode about the design and aesthetics of the apparel and equipment for the great outdoors, I wanted to start by finding out from each of you your most interesting sports and or outdoor experiences. So Jennifer, I'll come to you first.
I did one trail race that was at night with headlamp only lighting my way, and it was in the Marin Headlands up in Northern California. And it was an experience that I'll never forget because of not being able to see everything around me. It amplified all the other senses as I went through. And it was just incredible to experience being in nature at nighttime with only a headlamp to guide me.
Great. And Caitlin, over to you. What's yours?
So I grew up surfing. I do trail running as well. I do stand-up paddle. So I'm not sure that like one particular experience stands out. It's more just like when you're out there doing those sports and activities and you kind of step back for a second and you're like, wow, like the awe of nature, right? Like wild, like Jen mentioned, wild animals or different things. I think that's really powerful and it keeps people inspired to come outside and participate in those sports. So that's like what I constantly feel just in being able to do the different sports and activities outside.
Welcome to the Create Tomorrow podcast. I'm your host, Cassandra Napoli, Senior Insight Strategist here at WGSN. We recently launched Sport and Outdoor at WGSN, and today we'll hear about the materials, colors, and key trends we see shaping the future of sport and outdoor aesthetics. So how does the color of the year impact the designs of outdoor apparel and accessories? And what materials are designers using on the equipment that we will use to enjoy the outdoors? It's not all high-vis and Lycra. Joining me to discuss this topic, yes, you already met them, is Caitlin Folgner, Content Strategist for Sport and Outdoors. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, Cassandra.
And where are you calling in from today?
I'm located in Southern California in Orange County, right by the beach.
And Jennifer Birch, CMF, that's Color, Materials, and Finish, Senior Strategist for Sport and Outdoors. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Cassandra.
And where are you calling in from today?
I'm also calling in from Southern California, also Orange County, but not near the beach.
Caitlin, I'm going to come to you first. So at WGSN, we've written extensively about the outdoor boom, which we first called out on Insight all the way back in 2020, as we noticed sectors such as camping, hiking, biking, RVing, fishing, etc., really experiencing a boom in participation and interest. We've since forecasted the outdoor economy to continue to thrive as people turn to nature as a form of respite amid rising living costs and compounded stresses. How do you see this interest in the outdoors evolving?
Thank you. That's a great question. I think obviously, like you're saying, we saw the rise of like outdoor activities and sports when the pandemic forced people to go outside. And what we're seeing is a lot of sustained participation in that space. So if we track participation through SFIA for WGSN. So it's predominantly US based, but it reflects kind of like a global participation. And we see people really wanting to stay outside, being inspired by being outdoors, continuing to come outside and participate in the sports they love because they want to connect with nature and they want to connect with each other. So kind of see the evolution of that. And it's really starting to shift into the retention phase. So now that everyone's gone outside, how can we keep them outside? How do brands and products keep inspiring them to come out and do the sports that they love? So that's what we're kind of tracking on and watching.
That community element is so important. On Insight, we've been exploring this idea of collective effervescence as it relates to sports. So collective effervescence is this idea that there is a sort of shared harmony that people feel when you're experiencing something, a live event together in a shared space. Normally that is experienced at like a music festival or a sporting event. So this is coming through in the rise of run clubs and ride clubs when it comes to cycling and even motorcycling, especially those that are a little bit more inclusive, that invite women in to participate, a sort of come as you are spirit they have, welcoming people of all varying abilities and expertise levels. Are you tracking this as well on Sport and Outdoors? And how can gear brands really insert themselves into this rise of sort of collective effervescence?
Yes, absolutely. We're tracking it for sure. We agree. We see the similar rise in run clubs and cycling clubs and fitness families. I think what we're seeing from gear brands is really the opportunity for their stores or the way that they build their communities to really become like destinations for these kind of communities and events. We've seen places where they opened particular outposts potentially, right, where their products available and they can bring people together. They also are adding many more like night rides and run clubs to their store events. So really trying to be localized in each location and bring in the sport community that's in that place. So we're tracking that for sure. And I think you'll see, obviously, in our forecast, we're writing a lot about product, but that community element, we're really trying to like amplify it and give as many insights as we can into like how brands can bring that into the product side as well.
Yeah, on Insight, we called it treating the road as the runway. And we highlighted some small clubs. There's one in New York called No More Lonely Runs. It sort of acts as a safe space for people of all ages, races, and paces. They host runs on Saturdays, I believe, in New York in the mornings. And they've worked with a number of brands like New Balance, Champ Sports, etc. So there definitely is an opportunity to sort of integrate your brand into these community spaces for sure. Jennifer, I'm going to come to you now. I'm excited to hear your insights into the key trends you've been tracking in the design of apparel and equipment for the outdoors. Now, to give our listeners some context, you work with WGSN color teams looking at the future of color as it relates to outdoor apparel and accessories. So what can you tell us about colors used on outdoor products and the decisions that really go into choosing certain colors?
Right. Well, there are a lot of synergies across the many areas that WGSN color teams cover with color forecasting. Maybe a perfect example of that is the color of the year for 2026, transformative teal. And the inspiration for that color is how the earth appears from space. This beautiful deep teal color is one of those main colors that stands out. And if you think about it, for sports and outdoor, the earth is our playground. We feel very, attached to it. And it's where we spend a lot of our free time and we're very protective of it. So that color translates beautiful into sports and outdoor products. The difference, I would say, is that within equipment or hardware for sports and outdoor, color is very strategic. So it's not moving as fast a lot of times for hardware companies because these products are very technical. Sometimes, they don't sell them as often. The refresh rate is not as seasonal, for example. So they really want to be careful with their choices on color. And a lot of it has to do with the broad variety of materials that appear in sports and outdoor products. In some brands, some larger brands, have to merchandise across many different product categories. So they'll have very technical hardware that sits alongside their technical apparel and sometimes textile-based hardware like tents. So they have to choose colors that might get refreshed more regularly. For example, an elastic on a goggle strap could be easily refreshed seasonally, but a bike frame that people are going to spend a lot of money on and don't want to have to keep purchasing time and again. They want to have it for a long time because that actually is another initiative within sports and outdoors, longevity of product for sustainability reasons. They want to be very strategic with their color. But product graphics is where a lot of bold, playful color can happen. So that is an interesting way to apply color to sports and outdoor that brings a little bit of energy alongside the more strategic long-term color strategies that a lot of product companies have to think about.
I want to highlight the fact that your forecast, sport and outdoor color forecast, spring, summer 26 has gone live. It's about a month now that it's been live. And in it, you talk about how 2026 is being forecasted as this year of redirection. And that's seen across all of our forecasts. But in terms of color directions, you highlight many of them, but one that stands out to me is digital brights. I love that idea. There's electric fuchsia, I think is one of those digital brights. And that to me was so exciting. It was a total glimmer. We've been talking about that word. It brings such joy. I'm in the bike market at the moment. I'm looking for a bike, and to have an electric fuchsia bike would be so exciting to me. Where do you think those sorts of electric brights are going as we, gear up for 2026? How did we land on this?
I think with glimmers in particular, there's a sense of optimism and delight. And so a company can choose to take something like electric fuchsia, really bring a detail in that color that brings delight to somebody who might not expect it there, a little small component on a bike, or maybe it's a helmet color. But if you really want to make a statement and be bold and say, we love what we do. We want to bring some optimism into our product line. Just go for it and do the entire thing electric fuchsia. There are people that do that unapologetically, and it could be that it just, reflects really well on their brand from a PR perspective. May not be the best seller, but it's really beautiful take for them with their social media and their website. I find that that's really exciting take when I see brands really go all in on a color like electric fuchsia, but there are many ways you can use it and it's still very effective.
You're listening to the WGSN podcast Create Tomorrow. We are talking about the materials, colors, and key trends that we see shaping the future of sport and outdoor aesthetics. I'm your host, Cassandra Napoli, Senior Insight Strategist at WGSN. I'm joined by Jennifer Birch, CMF Senior Strategist, and Caitlin Folgner, Content Strategist from the Sports and Outdoors team at WGSN. Caitlin, I'm going to come back to you. So you've written a lot about this trend that you phrase as soft adventure, which I love, and it's about providing accessible routines for new participants to really reap the health and wellness benefits of the outdoors. This is coming through so strongly on social media at the moment with the rise of things like cozy cardio. This has gone viral on TikTok as a movement for women to sort of reclaim their relationship with exercise. It's about cozy pleasures of wellness. That might be something like a post-workout smoothie or mood lighting or watching a show while you work out. Could you walk us through the rise of soft adventure from a product perspective and sort of what comes next and what sorts of products could emerge from this trend?
Yes, we've talked a lot about soft adventure. It's actually our team discussion. So one of our strategists, Rory McAllister, kind of came across soft adventure. I believe from the travel industry, they kind of reference some things that way, right? Like whether you're going to go on a adrenaline, high intensity sport adventure, or you're going to go on a more approachable adventure. But we were like, oh, this soft adventure trend, it really resonates with the trends we're seeing in participation in the sports industry, right? So as you know, like traditionally, a lot of sports or a lot of activities that are done outside can be very adrenaline infused, right? You have a lot of like mountaineering and climbing, and you think of like K2 and elevated peaks, and you think of people jumping off of huge jumps for skiing and snowboarding and things like that. But there's also the other side of it, which is really more about like approachable participation. So you see, as we see the rise in participation in across all sporting categories, you're getting a lot of newcomers, right? You're getting beginners and novice people and people who aren't as familiar with these outdoor spaces or the activities or the products that are used. So we're seeing really this like soft adventure trend take hold because of that, and people really looking for things that kind of like draw them in and make them feel included and that they don't have to be as intimidated by some of these sports. So that's really kind of like what we've been talking about in our team. Obviously, we apply it a lot to the outdoor space, which is like camping, hiking, climbing, those kinds of things. It kind of just sits really well in there. But you'll see it across like snow sports and water sports. If you think of like surfing, you're not going to start out as a big wave surfer. You're going to start out as a 1 to 2 foot wave surfer, and kind of like the kind of products and gear that would be more beginner friendly. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And then the other part of it, talking into the glimmers trend and the awe of nature, is really like those products that kind of like inspire people to get outside. So a lot of the people in our team, we've written a lot about this Nemo Stargaze chair, but that's really about like the name of the product, right? Implies you're sitting outside under the stars, looking at the northern lights, things like that. And it's really about just like this approachable adventure in sports. So that's the way we've approached it.
Where do you think brands have a part to play here, right? So from a marketing perspective and from an insight perspective, we explore how brands are maybe, helping consumers participate, maybe providing tools and resources, helping educate them, helping sponsoring introductory type events. Are there any brands or gear brands really playing into that space yet, or is that an opportunity down the road?
Yeah, absolutely. They're playing into it. They're recognizing, obviously, that they have this like existing core base that's the extreme, adrenaline infused sports and the people who are really technical and innovative with their products. But then they also have this beginner consumer coming in and kind of joining in the way that they can mix those things together. So we actually wrote about it in our snow forecast. We talked about the Burton brand obviously has a lot of space in the snowboard industry, but they do a really nice program called Culture Shifters. It's meant to bring in a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds and be inclusive, but it is also about beginners and like kind of putting experts with beginners to kind of teach them and show them the ropes and make them feel more comfortable in the space. So it's really a nice community that makes people feel included. So I think that's a great example of the kind of things that brands can do. There's lots of opportunity, whether through like stores, through participation, through a certain product to kind of like bring beginners along and make them feel like part of your community.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And Jennifer, how does CMF tie into this? For example, I know that Sport and Outdoors has written about the rise of rugged luxury, which is about sort of bringing modern convenience and luxury to camping, travelers wanting their conveniences from home with them without the need to invest in new expensive luxury gear amid cost of living crisis. You just got back from the outdoor retailer event in Salt Lake. What were you seeing there as it relates to this trend?
Yeah, I would say that comfort, both literally and actually, as Caitlin mentioned, emotionally, is a big thing to try to get, CMF decisions made on products that will allow people to feel comfortable in these spaces that they might be trying for the first time. And it's interesting because there has been an increase in a lot of things that are inflatable, which is technically a comfort aspect. So you're not, if you're thinking about, do I want to go out into the wilderness and camp? It sounds uncomfortable, but there's a lot of innovation happening where I joke that like air has become a piece of equipment because there's so many different ways you can add air into something and it automatically makes it more comfortable. But people don't necessarily want to, if they're intimidated by the idea of going camping or going into the outdoors, if they know that they'll be a little bit comfortable and it helps them feel emotionally more comfortable, then you're seeing a lot of products and CMF decisions made around that. And I will say also with material innovation, there are updates to materials that will make them still be very technical, but you can color them or produce them in a color that actually feels very heritage outdoor. So like back in the days of cotton canvas tents, no one really wants to lug a heavy cotton canvas tent, but they can make textiles appear to be like something you'd want to have in your home. Quite beautiful. In camp cookware, people will bring a little espresso machines out there because they don't want to necessarily give up on having their morning espresso. And what better landscape to enjoy your espresso in than the great outdoors. So I think this is driving these decisions where little details from things that we would actually have in our home, we want to have with us when we go try something new and go out into nature and experience nature while we still can, or while it's still with the climate change, and like maybe experiencing it at night is one thing that they haven't done before or tried before. And it's actually a cooler time to go camping. So all of those things lead to CMF decisions that help drive people into these experiences and feel comfortable.
That is an amazing segue because we're now going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the rise of nocturnal outdoor lifestyles, right? So we've extensively covered this topic. It's still quite a fringe topic, but amid rising temperatures globally, we're closely tracking the rise of nocturnal living, which means more nighttime opportunities for brands across late night wellness routines, such as nighttime running, nighttime golfing emerging. I guess my question would be for whoever wants to take it, I'll open it up to either of you. Where do you think the biggest opportunity is for brands, gear brands in this space? Do you think we'll see more nighttime gear emerging? Will that be a separate category? What do you think?
We're seeing a definite interest in an increased interest in lighting, and as that applies to equipment. And I think that is driven by people wanting to experience nature at nighttime. So everything to be able to see through binoculars and with night vision to actual variety of wearable lighting or lighting in your equipment is leading that trend for us on the CMS side and the equipment side.
Caitlin?
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing a rise in nocturnal participation in sports. There's a lot of sports in this industry that have a history of this space, right? Like a lot of these activities, they might go over a 24-hour period. So some users are used to being outside at night, but because of what we're seeing across WGSN with nocturnal living and participation shifting from daytime temperatures to nighttime activities, we're definitely seeing a rise, and we're definitely seeing that meet up with that idea that there's more beginner consumers in this space or people that are not as familiar. So we're seeing a rise in the kind of products that would make them feel supported at night, or community participation that would make them feel supported at night. So you mentioned run clubs. Obviously, a lot of people don't feel comfortable running at night. So if there's a community or a space that they can join up, if there's a headlamp or a product like a reflective vest or some sort of safety equipment that makes them feel comfortable, I think that's where brands have the opportunity to kind of take products that they potentially have already created or have, a history of creating in this space, but bring in those like emotional connection, that community connection, make people feel comfortable to like go out and explore at night. in certain places like hiking, for example, there might be like wild animals, there might be uncharted trails, there's, like people, it's daunting, right? So the way surfing, right? We talk about night surfing in some of our reports, being in the ocean at night, that can be incredibly scary for many people. So I think the way that brands can kind of support their consumers, make them feel comfortable, inspire them with their products, right? Like sometimes you purchase that product and you're like, I just can't wait to get outside and try this, right? So that's kind of the approach that we're seeing from the brands and the products themselves and the way they can support like that nocturnal living trend.
Thank you to my guests, Caitlin Folgner and Jennifer Birch. If you're a WGSN subscriber, look out for more active sports and fashion trends available at WGSN.com. And if you're not a subscriber, please come and discover our services. We are constantly publishing new content, focusing on how we can design a brighter, better future for our industries, including fashion, interiors, food and drink, beauty, consumer tech, and sport and outdoor. We'll be back in 2 weeks for our next episode. In the meantime, you can catch the CEO of WGSN, Carla Buzashi, next week on our other podcast, Lives of Tomorrow, where she'll be joined by Senior Strategist Rohini Wahi, discussing the rise of the middle class in India and what this means for people and business in the region. I'm your host, Cassandra Napoli. Be sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast, and see you next time.